Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Sian, and if you are a fan of the morbid, disturbing, creepy, or anything horror related, then you are definitely in the right place. So I've been doing a lot of cult videos recently and I'm really enjoying them, and it seems like you are too. So today is another cult video. Can I just say I am very ready for Christmas. I finally have a week of holiday from my 8 to 5 during that Christmas week, and I am so excited. So if you are going on holiday over Christmas, I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoy this video. So today we're diving into the story of a man who some see as a spiritual guide and some people see as a total manipulator. He's known for his very unique teachings and very quiet meetings, and many people know him as the Canadian man who commands a cult with just his gaze. But apart from that, the story is also surrounded by a lot of serious accusations and a lot of controversy. It definitely doesn't sound like this person is a good man. Today, we're diving into the story of John de Ruiter. So John de Ruiter's movement is quite different from most. His long silences and very intense gazes have drawn hundreds of followers who believe he has a very deep spiritual wisdom. But lots of people question whether his methods are truly about helping people or about control. In this video, we'll explore his life, his teachings, some very troubling allegations, some of the rituals that his cult partook in, as well as where the cult is today. This is a true story full of contradictions about a man who claims to embody truth, but whose actions have definitely sparked serious doubts from a lot of his followers and a lot of people looking from the outside in. So let's take a look at who John de Ruiter is.
Real spirituality is living through the heart.
So John de Ruiter's story begins in Stettler, Alberta, Canada, which is a small Canadian prairie town where he was raised by Dutch immigrant parents. As a young man, he worked as an orthopedic shoemaker in Edmonton at European Shoe Comfort. But despite his humble start, John was already searching for deeper meaning in his life from an early age. I'm just gonna take this blazer off because it is way hotter than I thought it would be. At least I looked chic for a whole 5 minutes. So in 1983, when he was just 24 years old, he moved to Toronto to attend a Baptist seminar. However, he found the leadership there way too rigid and then returned to Alberta just after a year of being there. He then spent another year studying at the Prairie Bible Institution in Three Hills before interning with a pastor at Edmonton's Bethlehem Lutheran Church. It was during his internship at this church where John's unique spirituality began to emerge. The pastor occasionally let John preach, and even then, it was still John's very quiet and reflective demeanor that set him apart from the rest. But it was a dramatic 9-hour ritual in front of the church's elders that would define his path. In that session, he spoke about his awakening and his search for truth. While some people found his ideals quite alienating, some people were very moved, and these were the people that became his earliest followers. By the late 1980s, John had left Bethlehem Lutheran Church and taken 5 couples with him to form his own ministry. Initially, he shared an unconventional Christian message in a follower's home every Friday. Soon the gatherings moved to his own home on Edmonton's East End, where they remained for years. As his reputation spread, John began holding meetings at a small bookstore off White Avenue in Edmonton. The gatherings very quickly outgrew the space, and by the late 1990s, they had moved to Edmonton's Royal Acupressure Clinic. John's following continued to grow and grow, and in time he established a permanent home for his movement, the Oasis Center. This $7 million facility, operated by his College of Integrated Philosophy, includes an auditorium with marble columns, a proscenium stage, and room for over 350 people. The center also features a cafe and doubles as a venue for weddings or other events. Devotees not only attended meetings at the Oasis Center, but also devoted their time to support its operations. In 1998, John began traveling the world. He visited places like the United States, England, Germany, Netherlands, India, and Israel.
Edmonton, I'm at home. In Canada, I'm at home. In India, I'm at home.
His quiet teachings and very enigmatic style attracted hundreds of people, and many of his admirers even relocated to Edmonton to be closer to him. By the mid-2010s, John had built a global following. with thousands of people devoted to his philosophy and teachings. John's rise from shoemaker to spiritual leader is just insane. But as his movements grew, so did the questions about the man behind it, and we'll explore more about that later on in the video. So now we're just going to speak a little bit about the cult practices and the rituals and beliefs that they had. John de Ruiter's spiritual gatherings are unlike any traditional religious service. Instead of sermons or structured teachings, his meetings are built around prolonged silences, deep gazes, and individualized responses. Over time, his message actually shifted away from its early Christian roots towards a more New Age philosophy, often referred to as New Age gospel. He emphasizes surrendering to truth as the ultimate goal of life. He also famously stated, "All there is to do is to surrender to what you know is true." De Ruiter very rarely addressed his entire audience in his meetings. Instead, he invites individuals to ask him questions, responding to them one-on-one after very long pauses, sometimes lasting up to even half an hour. This practice, described by Vice as the staring cult, is central to his teaching style. During these silences, he claims to enter a very deep state of meditation, also known as samadhi, which allows him to connect on a spiritual level with his followers. His ability to hold his audience in silence, combined with the intensity of his gaze, creates a very powerful psychological and emotional impact on all of the attendees present. Some followers believe he can even look directly into their souls, forming intimate spiritual bonds even with strangers. Others report experiencing visions of Jesus, Buddha, or other religious figures during these meetings, while others claim to see an aura around him. Central to John's teachings is the idea of just letting go of ego, desires, and even one's own thoughts. He distinguishes between the self and the soul, often telling followers that their discomfort or dissatisfaction stems from being too confined by their own sense of self. For example, to one follower who expressed feelings of insignificance, he said, "You feel that because your self is too small for you." Similarly, he draws a line between mind and being, telling another follower, "When you no longer consult with your mind, when you consult only with what you are in everything that you are doing, then you found the source of life within." And that is a very confusing sentence. Try say that fast 3 times. His approach actually shares similarities with oral traditions found in Tibetan Buddhism, which also emphasizes detachment and release as paths to enlightenment. Yet de Ruiter's method is very unique in its heavy reliance on silence as a tool for both authority and connection. Sociologist Paul Juice analyzed de Ruiter's use of silence through Max Weber's theories on charismatic authority, identifying 3 ways in which silence bolsters his influence. First, silence invites followers to project their personal interpretations on him, filling the gaps with their own needs and beliefs. Second, it fosters an emotional sense of intimacy, creating a perception of deep personal connection even with those he has never spoken to directly. Third, silence reinforces his authority by selectively withholding responses, making his interactions seem very deliberate and significant. Many of his followers describe his meetings as completely transformative, comparing their experience to taking a really strong psychedelic. One follower likened it to an acid trip. He said that you listen and suddenly something snaps and you just get it, apparently. Another explained that it's not about anything he is saying, it's really about opening your heart and seeing what you see and what opens for you. Again, crazy sentences being spoken by these people. Followers often view John as a portal, a living embodiment of truth. And some people even described him as the Messiah. Some Canadian Indigenous followers refer to him as the lost white brother, a figure from certain native mythologies. De Ruiter's teachings are definitely complemented by a well-orchestrated infrastructure. His Oasis Center in Edmonton, with its marble columns and grand auditorium, reflect the sophistication of his movement. Followers attend meetings there several times a week and often volunteer to support the center. Financial contributions come in the form of meeting fees, merchandise sales, and tithes, enabling John to expand his teachings and sustain his lifestyle. To outsiders, these practices may seem enigmatic or even manipulative. The long silences, intense gazes, and vague teachings can definitely create an environment where followers become deeply dependent on his perceived wisdom. Yet for many of his devotees, these rituals are gateways to personal revelation and spiritual growth. As sociologist Stephen Kent remarked, this is the beginning of a new religion, and this is how they start. You just get a very clever, very charismatic guy to do something a little bit outrageous, and we just become instantly hooked. Isn't it funny? If people say the right things to you at a bad time in your life, you're done. I don't care what you say, you're done. Although long staring really does make me very uncomfortable, so I don't think this cult would be the right one for me, but maybe one I've spoken about in the past. I don't know. I'll have a think. So now we're just gonna go through some of the abuse allegations and lawsuits against John. He definitely isn't just a ball of spiritual wisdom and truth. So John has faced many allegations over the years, culminating in criminal charges of sexual assault. In January of 2023, 63-year-old John was arrested in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and charged with 4 accounts of sexual assault involving incidents that reportedly occurred between 2012 and 2020. Police allege that John told female members of the group that he was directed by a spirit to engage in sexual activity with them, and that doing so would provide them an opportunity for spiritual enlightenment or a higher state of being. This actually all sounds very familiar. I actually did a video on a cult where the cult leader was telling his followers the exact same thing. But yeah, I'll link it. There'll be a card somewhere in the video and you can watch that video. So despite these allegations, the organization has continued to operate, with its website actually announcing that de Ruiter would return to his role and that planned in-person gatherings in Edmonton and St. Albert would proceed as scheduled. John's representatives have stated that he intends to vigorously contest these charges in a court of law, and they've expressed the impact of the situation on those who know him. However, the Edmonton police believe that there may be additional victims, and they have told them to please come forward. These kinds of allegations are not really new to John's community. In 2017, an investigation by the Globe and Mail brought attention to his sexual relationships with his female followers, including married women. His own son, Nicholas de Ruiter, publicly criticized him for these relationships, accusing him of justifying his actions by claiming a knowing that he was meant to engage in sexual relationships with multiple women for a purpose of meaning. These revelations obviously caused significant controversy in the group, with some followers questioning his integrity and others rationalizing his actions as part of their spiritual path. Critics argue that de Ruiter has used his teachings and perceived spiritual authority to create a power dynamic that leaves his followers feeling vulnerable. His long silences, intense eye contact, and selective responses, which are all hallmarks of his public meetings, can create an environment where his followers project their own interpretations onto him, often viewing his actions as spiritually justified. According to reports, some women believed that engaging in sexual activity with him was crucial for their spiritual journey. De Ruiter's organization has addressed these allegations on their website, completely denying that he uses sex as a tool for submission or control. However, such denials have done very little to dispel concerns about the power imbalance inherent in his community. Many former followers describe feeling manipulated and coerced, while others remain devoted to his teachings. Despite the legal and ethical concerns, de Ruiter continues to attract a very loyal following. His ability to maintain support even in the face of serious allegations highlights the very complex dynamics of faith, trust, and power within these spiritual communities. For critics, however, these allegations underscore the darker side of charisma and the potential for abuse in such situations. So now we're just going to go through his website a little bit. He does have his own official website called johnderuiter.com, and it's kind of just a window into his teachings, activities, and how he presents himself to the world. The site is a central hub for his philosophy, providing resources for both long-term followers and those who are newly interested in his work. One of the very prominent features of the website is the extensive library of his talks and meetings. You can go through them and you can watch tons and tons of videos about what he believes. He provides access to audio and video recordings, allowing people to engage with his teachings remotely. So this suggests that they might be followers of John without actually being in Canada and part of the Oasis Centre. He probably does have a couple remote followers around the globe who just follow his teachings through the website without even engaging with him in person. The content focuses on themes like knowing, being and truth, emphasizing inner realization and the surrender of personal ego, consistent with his teachings about letting go of desires and beliefs that I mentioned earlier. The website also details lots of upcoming events and meetings that people can attend. And despite the controversies and legal challenges he's facing, John continues to host gatherings both in person and at the Oasis Centre in Edmonton and online. The events section lists schedules and provides information on how to participate, suggesting that his activities are ongoing and that he maintains a dedicated following. A very interesting aspect is the FAQ section, where de Ruiter addresses common questions about his methods and philosophy. For instance, he explains his use of prolonged silence during meetings, describing it as a way to facilitate deeper connections and understand beyond words. This ties back to his practice of deep gazing, which he claims helps individuals access a profound state of being. In the About section, de Ruiter shares his personal journey and spiritual awakening. He portrays himself as someone who has undergone significant transformations, leading him to become a guide for others seeking truth. This narrative emphasizes his commitment to living authentically and encouraging others to do the same. Notably, the website also includes responses to controversies. There's a section addressing criticisms and allegations made against him. In these responses, de Ruiter just denies using his position for control or manipulation, of course, stating he does not use sex as a means of control or submission over any person, and you believe what you want. This is in line with previous statements where he emphasizes personal responsibility and inner knowing. You can even go check out his YouTube channel, which also has around 5,000 followers, and some of his videos actually get more than 10,000 views, which I find very scary. So in and amongst all of this, you might be asking, where's the cult today? Is it still functioning? Is de Ruiter still using control and manipulation over people? And that answer is yep, it is still there. Despite the controversies and legal challenges surrounding de Ruiter, his movement remains active. The College of Integrated Philosophy, which is based at the Oasis Centre in Edmonton, continues to serve as a hub for his teachings. Weekly meetings, retreats, and online sessions are still being held to this day, attracting both longtime devotees and newer followers. Like I said earlier, and like you just saw, events are publicized regularly on his website, indicating that de Ruiter is maintaining his role as leader. The Oasis Centre is still not only a place for his teachings, but also a source of revenue to help fund de Ruiter's lifestyle. They still keep hosting weddings and events, and people are still free to volunteer and continue to dedicate their time to bettering the centre. This highlights the really deep loyalty and devotion that persist among his core base. Internationally though, John's movement has diminished somewhat compared to its peak, which was in the 1990s and the early 2000s. But there are pockets of followers that remain active in countries like Germany, the Netherlands, and the United States. These groups, who are often drawn through word of mouth or his international tours, view de Ruiter as a spiritual guide capable of unlocking profound personal truths. The allegations of sexual assault and manipulation have undoubtedly cast a shadow over the community. Media scrutiny and skepticism have definitely led to a decline in new followers, and some former followers have distanced themselves from the community entirely. Nevertheless, many devotees continue to stand by him, believing his teachings and dismissing the allegations, as many understand as personal attacks. Sociologists like Stephen Kent have noted that movements like John's often hinge on the leader's personal presence. While his charisma and unique practices have sustained the group for many, many years, the question remains, can this movement outlast John himself? Gordon Drever, also of the University of Alberta, remarked that some groups often face a very uncertain future once their leader is gone, saying, whether it's still around in 500 years or it disappears when he does, Who knows? Today, John's movement stands at a crossroads. On the one hand, his teachings continue to inspire a devoted community, with followers insisting they found personal growth and spiritual clarity through his guidance. On the other hand, the serious allegations against him have created a divide, prompting deeper questions about the ethics of power and trust in spiritual leadership. For now, the movement persists, but the future seems very uncertain. Whether it evolves into a spiritual institution or just fades out over time will likely depend on the outcomes of the current legal battles and the continued loyalty of its followers. So there you have it. This is the Canadian man who commanded a cult with just his gaze. And although this man may have helped people reach enlightenment or just help grow their spirituality, he is also facing pretty serious allegations of sexual assault and abuse. And more than one woman has come forward stating that this has happened to them. So you can decide whether you believe the allegations or not. I, for one, think that they are probably true, because when people are placed in power and placed in a situation where they have control, they tend to get a little bit crazy. And if you don't believe me about people going crazy when they're in control, you should go watch the Stanford Prison Experiment. It is a film, but it is based on a true story that happened in like the 1970s or something, where students in a university were put in like a experiment situation, and some of the students were the police officers in the experiment and some students were the prisoners or inmates in the experiment. And those police officers, they weren't even police officers, but when they were placed in power and put into control, it was pretty insane what they did. I'm not going to ruin anything for you. It is a super interesting watch, and I think you could definitely compare that to the kind of control and power that a cult leader feels over its followers. I think that that's why most cults and most of these situations just end badly. Out of every single cult that I've heard, I don't think anything has ever ended well. There's always some kind of lawsuit, some kind of allegation, some kind of fraud, money taking, abuse, sexual assault, you name it, it probably happened. But that's just me, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think about this cult and about John, and if you think you could be drawn into a cult by simply just being stared at. Anyways, I hope that you have an amazing festive season. If you are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and your family and your loved ones. And I hope that it is a happy, positive time, full of food, full of laughs, and full of love. Sending you lots of hugs and kisses. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!